We are at the top of the hour. And again, appreciate all of you for coming in. And just a couple quick things. This is a fireside chat. This is something where this is not a big commercial for Agency Revolution. Some of you are clients. Some of you might be prospective clients or have some interest. You're working in the industry, just want to learn a little bit more. And to be fair, I do a lot of these webinars, and these are the moments where I get to kind of sit back. So, Amy, no pressure. But at the same time, everyone's here to have an understanding of how people are executing within the industry, within the insurance agency, with your clients, with your prospects. And so, unlike maybe some of those demo days that you attend with Agency Revolution, these fireside chats are really to bring people from within the industry into the room for the discussion, and then we all get to learn with one another. So as you're in here, we're almost at the 100-person mark, so that's pretty cool. We have a couple things just for you to note. One, you're within the Zoom platform, so you should notice controls usually at the bottom of your screen, and you'll see areas where you have the ability to chat with us. And so throughout, if you have questions, if you want to make comments, if you want to laugh, if you want to call something out and say, I don't know if I truly believe that, this is how we do it within our agency, all of it's fair game. Ian is behind the scenes. He is the Agency Revolution tile that you see, and he's also kind of our game show host towards the end of this. But just know that he will be answering some questions and then save some for the end of this discussion so that we can really bring that to the surface for everybody else to hear. And the other thing is that we are recording this. It is being recorded, transcribed, and we do that because after this is all done, we are going to send this to those that registered and attended so that you have it as something to keep and to learn from and to execute on. And so just wanted to get those quick items out of the way. And then if you've attended the Fireside Chats, this is only our second. This is a brand new webinar series that we're doing. You have the chance to win this beautiful mug from Agency Revolution, and there is a little game at the end, and the first three people to answer the question correctly will be awarded this Fireside Chat mug, and we'll get your information if we don't already have it and get that shipped over to you. So we've got some swag to give away, in addition to the great conversation that we have. And I love the heart someone is excited about the swag, if
That's
nothing else. And what I also notice, and you probably see, Amy, is like some people turning on their AI recorders.
yeah,
So
I saw that.
yeah,
Yeah.
they'll start to record this and maybe they'll come back towards the end because they're like, that's the only way I'm going to win. Because I don't think AI can answer the question. You could always try it.
We're gonna see who's good at trivia at the end.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, so the agenda is in front of you. I'll just quickly kind of read through it. But again, this is a little bit more informal conversation. Sometimes there are questions that arise because there's a really interesting track that maybe Amy or I are mentioning that we should dig deeper on. But we're going to go through some policy per client insights that we've pulled from third-party research, as well as what we're seeing within Agency Revolution, because we work in this space and can see that type of data that's rolling through the marketing automation that we have. Two, why cross-selling works, again, supporting it with some data. And then we'll talk through the cross-sell cycle, success stories, which really is Amy's ship to run, and share with us. And then I'll just drive in with some more questions. Then we'll have the webinar giveaway and then the Q&A session itself. We will try to get you through before 60 minutes. We just create that time because I will say, and I love it, I love our followers, our fans, our audience. We have stuck around sometimes even after the 60-minute mark. You don't have to, but I just want you to know that we try our best to finish the meat of the discussion before that 60 minutes is up because we understand you're busy. So I will get through the quick of Agency Revolution really quickly here. We are a company of 3,000 plus independent insurance agencies. That's who we work with and we service. And we're proud of that. And we work across the entire spectrum from scratch agencies all the way up to call it your top 10 agencies in the country. And we do that through some different solutions, which I'll go through in a minute. But it's really important to understand that this is the only space that we're based in. We live, breathe, and die the property casualty benefits life insurance space. And we are here to make sure that we can take some of the onus off of you as agencies as you're working through your customers, your prospecting, your sales, everything that rinse, repeats, renews. We are there to support that on the side. And we are happy to say that Amy is also a partner and client of ours. And we're excited every day to work with people like you. And we back up what we do with very transparent ratings, reviews, CSAT. If you're a client, you know we ask for NPS, Net Promoter Score, every so often, just to understand if that loyalty, we've developed it and we get that trust from you. And then we also have customer satisfaction surveys, and then we stand behind it and we're able to demonstrate that. So that's a little bit about us. The most important part, and I'm kind of circling it with my mouse, if you can see the cursor, it's the people. And we have very densely populated teams. I was calling out or talking earlier with Amy about our team in Pennsylvania. Primarily, that's where our service center and support is. And that happened through the acquisition that we had of Forge 3, for instance, the website portion of our product. But everybody's working within the United States to help support you as agencies. And then our sales a little bit more splattered throughout, and development pocketed in kind of the Midwest as well. And so that's a little bit about Agency Revolution. That's the people, that's the success that we see with our clients. What do we actually do? We provide marketing automation. It's called Fuse. We tie it into all agency management systems to be able to pull data about the policyholder out and then communicate across all of your insureds so that it feels very personalized, humanized, so that you can do the really cool things that you do with your customers when you're advising them. We have insurance websites. We call it Forge, and that is from the Forge 3 acquisition. And we have agencies that leverage the tool to support their brick and mortar or even their virtual office. And it really does market, sell, service, support clients on a daily basis. And those two combined, we then wrap up a bunch of cool things around it to just really even out that front end system for you to communicate, market, sell, and service. With business texting, we have a team called Do It For Me that'll help you with Fuse even further than what you can do on your own. Local listings, reputation management's involved, and so is social media. And so that is a bit about us. We have that whole front office thing working all in one with the agency management system that you've chosen, and they work hand in glove together.
And
Okay,
Jason, real quick, I just have
yeah,
to touch on that too, because I mean, my gosh, it's been 7, 8 years
I know.
maybe since we've been working with Agency Revolution. It's been a long time. And your team has always been fantastic when we reach out about helping us, giving us guidance, how to do things. And so I just want to thank you for that because it's always been a great experience working with the team that you have.
Thank you, Amy. And I will say that it's this back and forth, this human, this authentic approach that
Hmm.
honestly no one can ever overlook. And that's what agencies do so well, is they bring that authenticity to the person, to the business. This stuff's cool in the background as it's running, but it really is still the relationship side. I think that's preached to death, but it has to be because
Yeah.
no
One of
one
my
can
favorite
thrive
words
without it.
is synergy. Like having the synergy to be able to work alongside, like your team helps like come up with ideas and implementation of how we can better help our customers.
Appreciate that. And I
Yeah.
agree. And I think it's funny that then I switched to this image.
Scary.
This is a very scary thing. And I think it's kind of a disservice to me because then when we show you, you look like you're just very much like open to talk.
Yeah.
And then here I am with a scary story. I promise no scary stories today. But going with the fireside chat theme, president of Agency Revolution. And I've worked in property casualty. It's weird to say, but for about 20 years now on the technology side, working with carriers, agencies, and insurtechs just to really bring this world together, and excited to share a lot of that with you today. Amy, a little introduction from you would
Yeah,
be.
so Amir, there's your marshmallows. I saw in the chat somebody said we need marshmallows. There you go. So my name's Amy Malzo. I'm the National Strategic Business Analyst for Brown and Brown. I've been here for over 10 years, have held a variety of different roles, and also was in ultra high net worth, middle market, mass affluent. And so being able to hold those different roles and all the different positions that I've been in really is going to help, I think, give some context to cross sell today, because one of the things we're going to jump into in a little bit is based on your market segmentation and how to really cross sell to the different types of clients that you have, because it's not a one size fits all. So that's just a little bit about me. And I do love my image.
It's always good for the guest, and then everyone laughs and waits for me when they show my particular picture. It always makes.
Yeah.
So we have the good cop, bad cop situation. Um,
Right.
I will say when we get to your portion, what I'm excited about too is you have a note in there about education. And I think that that is extremely important, not just internally for producers and CSRs and admins, but for the client side, because I think sometimes we get lost and we're guilty of this. Is sometimes we'll talk to agencies about cross sell, and I think even go too much into just the transactional side of what that means and how the tool does it, but it really starts with the education of that client, etc. So just hearing that from you and checking that box, I think is very important. But before we get there, here's some grounding for us. We're using a source. We're using Marshberry as a source, and then some of our data from Agency Revolution. And so we know that policies per client is important. And from an industry baseline perspective, we're seeing 1.3 to 1.7 policies per client as an average. High performers are considered this 2 plus. And we'll get to why that's important. I'm pretty sure everybody on this call knows why that's important. From a tech enabled perspective, and what we're seeing from an agency revolution perspective, compared to the industry average is 1.9 platform average, and then we're seeing top performers in that 2.5 to 3.8 policies per client. That does vary across personal lines and commercial lines, and I want to say that because you are looking at a swath of agencies and what they're able to do and perform. But we wanted to bring this information because just in this alone, and based on the data that we know to compare against industry average, tech enablement is important, never going away, and it does have the ability to eke up beyond those industry averages. And then those that are top performers that embrace, like you, Amy, can really push the envelope of what you can do. And it's just about starting and baby stepping to get there. The other and 3.7 x longer than single policy accounts, top performers retain their clients 3.7x longer. Anything that you have to pressure test or say to this, Amy, before I jump to the next
Yeah, what
slide?
I was going to add is, I think this is a good exercise to do within your agency is just to see what the baseline of where you're at now. How many monoline policies you have, whether it's monoline home, auto, but then as you are focused on this educational series and cross-selling, what does that look like? How does that change? See if you can use the data. A lot of times what I want to do is I want to look at the data of like, okay, where were we at? And then are we seeing success and return on our investment from what we're doing? Because there's times you might try something from a cross-sell perspective and did you really see the value like from doing that? Maybe, your customers are more receptive to another different tactic. And so I think it's important to track as you are doing this. And I know one of the things your system does is allows us to see who opens it, how long were they, did they forward it, all of that stuff. So I would recommend making sure that you're doing that ahead of time. And then as you're doing targeted cross-selling, see what they're receptive to,
Yeah.
right? Because that's really you want to make sure that what you're sending out is important to your clients and not just jargon that they're not going to want to pay attention to because when you really do send something important they're going to kind of ignore it sometimes if you send too much.
And I'm gonna build onto that because I think that we need to hear more of that in the industry, which is what you're saying. Have your baseline, and I don't care if you work with Agency Revolution from this perspective. A lot of technology firms will come in and say they'll do great things for you. And then what happens is because they're not coming in prepared, like you are recommending, it then becomes, yeah, I think maybe. And the technology firm is going to convince you that yes, we absolutely
Mhm.
help to lift. But to come in prepared and say, this is my baseline, my expectation is, I just saw some slides that were fancy that said that I can achieve these things. Can your technology or your solution do that? And again, that's not just applicable to Agency Revolution. For any technology firm, we
I
love when
agree.
someone comes in with a baseline. Yeah.
I 100% agree with that.
Because we don't know. We in most technology firms don't, and they don't have the history, and they can't pull that history. So that
And
helps
then do you
you.
continue investing in that tech if it's not working, or
That's
do you
right.
take that and you reinvest it somewhere else that is going to be more effective?
That's right. And so this is where I was saying most of the audience probably kind of knows this, still leveraging Marshberry information. but just looking at, okay, if you are able to take a monoline customer and make them multi-line, and this is just a personal lines example, but then taking that personal lines and then adding what we're seeing, which we know that there's more of this gig economy, there's more private companies, SMBs growing every day at a higher rate than publicly traded companies. So we're starting to see even this mix of what was a personal lines, maybe affluent customer, then open a small business, etc. The point in this visual, though, and what Marshberry has helped put together is to say, this is what you can tend to expect if you've got one policy versus two versus three or more. That lifetime value means so much to the agency because then you can use it in what Amy said. Are we growing? Is there a return on investment? And by how much? These tools should help to lift you to this point where you're able to take these monolines and grow them because you're literally living with them in the life cycle of how they grow. Do you do you see this in your space, Amy? Is this
Yeah,
tangentially
I
correct?
do. I think another important thing is not just even so much the cross-selling, but when with like the last one where you have the business insurance, the homeowners insurance, the auto insurance, you're also doing a true assessment of the risk. So if you just have, for example, in the first column there, you have auto insurance. Well, then do they have the coverages that they need? Or if you're going to sell them an umbrella, but you need information on the home, like you want to make sure there's no gaps and that you're having a full conversation with them and educating your customer in regards to, okay, this is what I'm seeing. And you want to look at the whole portfolio so that you can do what's in their best interest. That's why they come to us. We're trusted advisors. You want to be able to give them the information and say, okay, well, we had a conversation about this, but I don't see this as coverage on here. And so that is part of that 11 years of lasting longer too, is being able to have that conversation and give them that peace of mind. Because the last thing you want at the end of the day, we always think a claim could happen. It's a risk, might not happen until I physically went through a claim myself and I worked in insurance is when I really understood the value of having certain coverages on my policy. And if my agent hadn't taken the time to like explain that to me, or if I didn't understand that personally, that could have been a potential out-of-pocket loss that I would have been stressed about versus having the peace of mind that there was coverage in my policy.
And I think that's the perfect setup to move into your section because to get from just leveraging or getting a customer for the first time and then nurturing them and getting them to do more, that's a ton of work, especially
Mhm.
as you continue to grow as an agency and you've got 500, 1,000, 2,000, whatever the number of total customers that you have. How do you do that at scale? And that's really the crux of our discussion together and to learn from you on how you're able to get something out of this cross-sell cycle. So the cute image is just to walk us through kind of that three-step process that we're really going to go into detail with you, is that identify, automate, and track. And so that's a very simple thing to say, but how to execute upon that because we need to, like you said, identify the gaps in coverage, leverage some of that AMS data, and we're thinking about this from a technology perspective. So once that's identified, if that can be pulled in from the management system, then it is about running some automation around these different segments of customers based on what they do and don't have. And then how do you educate them? How do you make them aware and get them when it's time for renewal to be able to add policies to their existing portfolio? And then tracking, like all of this work that you're doing and this technology that you're deploying, does it actually impact the business? Does it create a lift? This is the simple way to look at it. What else would you add?
I think this is a simple way to look at it, but I also think it's just important to make sure where you say, like, we just kind of talked about this, identifying the coverage gaps. That's where that educational piece of maybe the difference of like what a flood policy covers versus what's on your homeowner's policy, because by means of doing those educational cross sells, that is where you're going to help grow your business. And also, then it's a different conversation in the event that there, heaven forbid, is a claim with that client. Because the last thing you don't want to happen is for them to say, well, you never told me about this, or we didn't talk about this, or, you know.
Yeah.
And so part of what I really like about the automate piece that has been really successful is being able to get at the actual drill down data, in AMS for us. That's been really important. For example, if there's, a hurricane coming, we can say, okay, take everybody in this zip code, send them this message, or here's their claim information. If they're with this carrier, and not every tech has the ability to do that. And to me, that just adds value to our customers when you can reach out to them and then, hey, check your policies. Are your policies, do you have everything you need? Are you ready in the event that hurricane does happen to hit your area? And it's just a good way. It's also a good way to cross sell without cross selling, just saying, let's ensure everything's there. I noticed you don't have flood. We might want to
Right.
look at that. Or you've got an X win policy, depending on the time he might be in a moratorium, you can't add it. But hurricane season's coming up, for example. So no, I love this slide. I agree with all of this.
So
You can track it.
and the data piece has been something that sometimes there's a hang up when we're working with agencies because to your point, it has to be clean data in order to be
Hmm.
able to then communicate correctly. And I hear from a lot of agencies, they're like, listen, it's kind of the 80/20 rule. About 80%, call it baseline of our data is clean. It's good. We know that we can market to these people, whether that's phone or email. But then you've got the other 20% that always seems to be this cycle of trying to identify the right email address, the right phone, whatever it may be. And so does that kind of track that that's always going to be something you deal with as an agency, the cleanup process. But should you wait until 100% of it's clean?
No, I mean, I would send it out. And plus, like, the nice thing is we can see what emails are not working. So it gives us an opportunity to then reach out to that client and say, we need a new email, or do we still have the correct phone numbers on file, or you still at this address, and just verify the information so that you can make your data a little stronger instead of
Okay.
having, we've got thousands of clients, can't do that exercise with thousands of clients. This allows the ability for us to say, okay, this email isn't working. Let's try the phone numbers and let's now call and confirm a certain subset where we're seeing the emails incorrect. And let's make sure. And the other thing is we always try to get more than one email because the worst thing I hate is when clients give us a work email and then they're no longer at that work email and we're getting cancellation notices and we can't reach them because we only have their work information. So it's
That's
also important trying to capture as much as you can when you do have that initial phone call. And I try to always say I'd rather have your personal if possible. I know in commercial and other lines you're going to have, their work email, but in personal lines, I think it's good to have your personal information.
and I know I took you a little bit down a rabbit hole, but this whole point is being able to retain your clients and cross sell to your clients. But if that data isn't almost treated as quarantined. And
Hmm.
then you're running, it sounds like your point is run a campaign against the quarantine of those that have dirty data so that you can continue to notch away at that to add them to the ones that are clean so you can do the retention and you can do the cross sell. And so that is something that I thought of when you were like, yes, the AMS data, having that and being able to segment, well, what if it's not clean? And that's where we run into a lot of the issue. And you're treating it like its own campaign and you're quarantining those because you can see it's not
Hmm.
delivered. So let's go after them separately.
Or well, how many emails do we not have? Do we don't even have an email to reach out,
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Okay, so I kept alluding to this, but we're actually here at this point now. So we've given you kind of the preamble, the more than a decade at Brown and Brown Insurance. Amy brings a proven track record of driving strategic growth through cross-selling enablement and operational excellence. So what we asked of you was if you don't mind providing a few talking point bullet points that you can really dive into to take the meat of the premise of this and create the meat for everybody on this call so that they can walk away with some action items regardless. Again, if you're using Agency Revolution, don't care. The point is, if you're doing some automation, if you're doing this outreach communication, Amy's here to help kind of guide you in certain ways that she's executing right now. And so that's what we wanted to get to with you. So, top cross sell strategies from Amy. These will kind of drip in here. Let's talk about the first one, turning data into cross sell opportunities. What do you got?
So for that, I think it's really important, like to look at almost back to what we were saying earlier, assess your book, see what you have, how many monoline policies do you have, how many home and auto, like really take the data and break it down, and see, okay, because that allows you to know, okay, we've got, and when we look at our monoline business sometimes, you also need to assess, is it worth it to have that monoline business? Because if you just have a flood policy and you don't have a home and an auto, that's you're not doing justice to that client because again, it's being able to review their portfolio. So I think one of the most important things when you go to start or think about cross-selling is reviewing your data and then also identifying like where you're at. I'd mentioned Florida earlier, but if you're in California, you might have different needs than somebody in Connecticut. And so that's where I think it's important to like review whatever that is for your agency because it can be different for everybody. But I like to do exercises sometimes where I'm like, okay, how many clients do we have with flood and no other line of business? Or home, like how many clients do we have a home but we don't have their auto? Because that's an easy cross sell is for auto. It's faster than home depending on where you are in the country. But that's always a good first step of where to start.
Is it fair to say that all of your clients has some cross-sell potential, or are there some that it's like, you know what, we actually don't do a lot of cross-sell upsell. It's more about the retention of that particular portfolio, and that's what matters for now.
We
I'm
have
asking
different,
because I'm naive.
yeah, we have different segmentation because we are so large, So we've got, our small business, that's more just like those one or two monoline policies. And we have our middle market, mass affluent, and then we have our ultra high net worth, where a lot of times in that space, that's more because of the consulting with that client or even in a family office, you're going to sit down with them and you're going to assess everything and you're going to make sure everything's in one place. So you might not see as much cross-sell opportunity in the ultra high net worth space as you do
Okay.
in the middle market, mass
Okay.
affluent space. And obviously price is always important to everybody, but you also need to make sure you're going over the coverages. For a while they were limiting water. I was seeing water limitations and clients are calling in and they want to move their policy, to another carrier, which we're always willing to offer. But you also, part of back to that education is saying, you have full coverage right now. This is the number one claim we see, like, with condos. Are you sure you want to move if it's only a couple $100 less? And then at that time, also, why don't we look at this? Maybe I can save you money on your auto. I notice we don't have your auto. Just it helps those conversations for cross-selling too. And when you're able to break it down, and you don't have to do it all at once. I think sometimes we feel like we have to send it out to everybody, or the team's going to feel overwhelmed. And so that's what's nice is like for us, we can break it down and send it out by agent and personalize it. So we can take a subset of a teammate and say, okay, we're gonna, do some cross-sell opportunities for clients that are in your book, and we're gonna focus on this during this period of time. And then we can look at when their policy's expiring. So it's also giving that touch base within 60 days of your policies renewing, right? Or expiring and and saying, okay, in 60 days, your policies are going to renew. Let's take a look at this. I also noticed you don't have this. And so it's just an easy way to break down the book in your data versus thinking you have to look at it in totality of everything, where it can be a little overwhelming depending on the size of what your book looks like.
Yeah, and we've done some past webinars on employee sentiment, and just by you describing that, it's probably somewhat liberating to those teams that are like, there's just a lot to do, and you're like, no, we're gonna bite-size chunk this out
Hmm.
because we have plenty of time to get across this entire book. But by putting that focus on these cross, it also allows you to put your arms around the success of that using the tools that you're using to deploy.
Right. Yeah, because then it's, oh my gosh, what if everybody calls me? I can't help everybody,
Right.
So okay, let's it's okay, we're gonna break it down,
Yeah.
and then you can and do that for the different teammates. And then the fact that it comes from them and it comes from their email is a completely different experience than when it's from some just generic email that's not personalized sometimes, when it has their name on that signature.
Yeah. All right, that's helpful. Let's jump to the next one. This concept of marketing calendar, which we spoke offline about, love
Mhm.
it and want to expose that to everybody. What do you have for us on that?
So what I like to do is I always like to sit and look at the year. Okay. And then depending on, like for us, we write all over, we're even international. So you need to sit down and you need to assess, okay, let's make a marketing calendar and let's figure out what content, when we want to send it, and come up with a strategic plan. This way, when you sit down and do that, and then the nice thing is like, at least for us with you guys, we can automate it. So once
All
we
right.
set it, like it's good to go. It's not something we have to constantly go back in and do. Um, and so, based on what are the different storms or what are the different, seasons and what do we want to target? Maybe if it's like pipes freezing, right? You want to send that out before winter comes, like in the fall, and what to do. I actually learned that lesson the hard way when I moved from Florida up to, even though I grew up in Maine, up to North Carolina. I didn't realize I had to drain like my water hoses on the side. And so the one busted the one year and I had to have someone come fix it. And he's like, you didn't unscrew the top of this. And I was like, I totally forgot. Like I'm used to like where it's warm all year round. Like I didn't even know that could freeze and break. Um, so I think by having that marketing calendar, that allows you to kind of make a strategic plan of how are you going to target and help like cross sell or part of like that educational series of
Do
what to
you
look out for. Because it might not just be adding a policy. Maybe they need to really sit down and look at their current coverage and see if anything's missing.
okay? And do you in this marketing calendar, is it email only, or how do you maybe do you go to conferences and conventions? Do you do things in local communities? Are you social on social media? Like, how do you consider all these elements that you have to get your word out and continue to build onto that narrative and story?
Yeah, so that's a good point. Is you can look at like what's going on. Like a lot of times, at least for me, I know when certain conferences are, like when this is a prevalent conversation or event or a training, that maybe a carrier might be hosting. And so you can always, I think one thing too, and we have it here at the end, is work with your carrier partners on coming up with a strategic plan for your marketing calendar because they have content too that
Yeah.
they're going to want to give you, and that'll help you back into that marketing calendar. But yes, put it on your social media. It doesn't just have to be email or, quite frankly, old school. We'll pick up the phone and call. So part of with like reviewing the data is okay, I, did an exercise one time and it was flood because I was finding that a lot of individuals did not understand flood. And this was, I think, shortly after we saw some big experiences across like, between Sandy and Hurricane Katrina and all of that. So put on a calendar, okay, this is the season we usually see based on claims, right? A lot of like flooding occurrences. And let's target those clients that don't have it. And we literally took and ran a list and got the list of who didn't have it from the system, but then called them and
Okay.
just left them a friendly message along with sending an email so that we could have the conversation with them to really explain it.
Okay. And I knew you had an answer to that. I just think it's important for everybody to hear that, like, this is a multifaceted approach that
Hmm.
never stops, but you're also doing it in such a way that's careful and considerate because we talk to agencies all the time that are like, I'm in between this. I feel like I just talk to my clients too much and I say too much. And what
Yeah.
you're doing is identifying that actually can happen, but if you're purposeful, you put together a calendar of this, you do things in bite size based on different segments. Not
Hmm.
everyone is getting a communication today, but through that evolution, you're able to do it in such a way that it feels very natural. And I'm touching myself, but like it feels very natural for me, the customer of you as the agency,
Yeah.
because you're just talking to me. And
I
it's not
know there's times we feel like, oh, it's like, oh, like how am I going to get to this? Break it down.
right.
Five client, and out of those five clients, only maybe two of them are going to answer the phone, right? Because a lot of times everybody's busy. But
Yep.
just giving that little bit of personalization and a little bit of a touch point, that goes a long way to show that you're thinking about them. And it doesn't have to be around their renewals, too. And I think that's important,
That's a good point.
because then it's like, oh my gosh, they're actually thinking about me and not just because, oh, my policy's renewing and they want to make sure I'm paying the bill. So I think like doesn't when you run these lists or you plan these marketing calendars, it does not have to be off of when their policy's expiring or renewing either.
That's a great point. Um, okay. Customer segmentation. We keep touching on it, but can you
Mhm.
dive in a little bit more, or maybe some nuggets that you haven't shared already?
Yeah, so we're for customer segmentation, there's going to be a different focus, of what is important to them sometimes, not all the time, but maybe in your ultra high net worth space, it's going to be more around like fine art, you know. I'm not one to have fine art. I'm a TJ Maxx, like home's good girl. So I would not, but I've been to like the art shows and the different things that where they taken that is their interest,
Right.
right? Or, sometimes you're gonna see like Haggerty actually does a really great job of this with like their cars. Like they have these car shows and like educational things around the cars. And so again, I'm not super into cars, but some clients are. And so just identifying like what is it your customers are interested in, right? And sometimes it's price. I just want what's the best price. I don't. And so the conversation becomes different and the cross sell becomes a little different, right? I don't like to
Yeah.
think of it as cross selling. I think that's why I keep mentioning the education piece. But for example, if you do have a piece of fine art, we need to make sure that that's covered and that's insured. Or even sometimes like I've seen German mug collections, Legos, like, there's a
Okay.
lot of different interesting things. And so part of having the conversation with your client is what are their interests?
Okay.
Because sometimes if you don't have a conversation about what their interests are, I'll talk to someone in there. I fish. I love going out on my boat and fish. Oh, okay. And then you start getting them talking about that. And then all of a sudden you find out that they've got a lot of expensive fishing equipment and this, and they invest in this. And so do we make sure that that's all covered, and like you have enough coverage for that? And so I think it's important that just by having a conversation, you're finding out what their interests are. I had somebody with pinball machines, and they were expensive
Oh my gosh,
pinball
yes.
machines, and so we needed to make sure that that was covered because in the event, and I've seen it, unfortunately, we've all seen it being in insurance, you see the ugly of it with the claims. And the most devastating thing is if that is not something you did have a conversation with, or it's not something that's covered on their typical policy, it's not fun having to explain that they lost that or they have to come out of pocket for that.
It's you, and you point out something that's good and makes me think of a couple things. One, the Lego sets are becoming like $1,000 now, and then when someone puts it together,
Daughter loves Legos.
yes, I'm
Yeah.
taking my son like
They're
Star
making a
Wars stuff.
comeback. Yeah.
Yes. And then Ian, who doesn't have his camera on right now, he has a massive Star Wars collection. And so your point is by diving into that customer, it goes beyond like the things that we think of, oh, that's what insurance is for. And then being able to automate that communication and have that personalization just makes it so much more of like, wow, this person really gets me. And to your point,
Hmm.
it doesn't have to just be leading up to renewal. You can do a simple, hey, what have you added to your collection in a form like intake, have it populate back to your system so that you have that information. And yet again, it can set you up for a cross sell that you probably never expected before, but in a very
Right.
authentic way, I think.
Yeah. Or, a lot of times, like we're getting into summer, people are traveling, travel insurance,
Yes.
you know? And so when you take, but you can break it down. So with customer segmentation, break it down of who you want to target. And maybe you're like, okay, we're going to focus right now, and goes back to the marketing calendar on somebody with two policies versus somebody with one. Or we know this customer has, don't count out the ones that have three or four policies with you because they are more apt to say, oh, you're right, I don't have that coverage. I am traveling this summer. I should have some added travel insurance.
Yeah. All
Cyber's big right now too.
what?
Cyber
Oh,
is
yes.
another one.
Yeah. Yes. This is all, and thank you for introducing like the examples of the segmentation because I think that it opens up the mind of like how much further we can go in our industry and the things that we should consider asking and wrapping into the communications that ultimately get automated out. Educational. You keep alluding to it. I said that I'm excited that this has worked itself into the discussion. Tell us about it.
So for me, this is a big one, because I truly believe that we need to educate our customers and let them know like what the coverages do and let them make a decision, right? But if you don't talk about it, they don't know about it. That was one of the things when I first started in this industry. I had no idea about insurance. I came in, I was, completely did not know. And I just really took educate yourself too. That was one of the first things I did when I started at Brown and Brown is it just ate it up. Like I wanted to know like the answers. So and if you don't know, it's okay to tell a client, you know what, that's a great question. I want to verify that information, or especially if they're directing it toward their policy, let me take that down and get back to you. So the worst thing I hate to see is that you're educating on the wrong aspect of coverage, right? But I think like educating them on uninsured motorist, what does that mean? You know, there's so much language and different types of policies that it's important to really take the time and break it down. And look, I understand I was there, I was an agent. Clients do not want to stay on the phone with you forever, right? So walk through what you can and then use and put together an educational series. And again, you can do this by your marketing calendar of when to reach out to them. I wish I had remembered the whole thing with my pipes. I'm constantly telling people in New England, like, make sure, or we had a client that didn't drain their pipes and like something happened. So I've seen that, I didn't think about that, but had something been at the forefront of my mind, I do read when I get emails sometimes, I would have been like, oh, I got to winterize my house. I got to close. I didn't know I had vents on this house. I didn't know I had to close the vents on this house. I didn't know that was a thing, you know? So I think that by taking, and it does not have to always be insurance, could just be like tips for winter, tips
Right.
for her, like if you're dealing with, like, we saw those crazy fires, like things like that. And it doesn't even have to be education, it could be resources, of like who to call or how to get help and stuff too. So I just really believe that's important. Um, because then you're allowing them to understand why that coverage is important. And sometimes that difference of paying for it, when you explain it, you know what, I'm gonna spend 19, $20 on my lease loan gap coverage, like for my auto. Like little things like that, and helping them understand why it's important to maybe pay for that extra coverage goes a long way.
I love wrapping in the educational series, and I know I keep harping on it, but I believe in halo effect, and like you don't have to sit here and beat someone over the head with, like you said, just reminding them you're up for renewal. No, you should add this thing. And I would say that people, that agencies, even on this call, would be like, yeah, education, and we educate people. But I think the intentionality of how you're describing it, the fact that you're building out a calendar around it, and that you're making it very consistent so that you can have this mix of things that feel like, is this my insurance agent or is it kind of a friend? Like,
Hmm.
want to cross that bound as much as you can because, yeah, in the end, you want to protect them and you have a business to run. But just thinking of those things would have helped protect you. I think of my brother, his burst too. It went down into the basement that he had just finished and
Yeah,
was very proud of. And it was because of that we live in the Columbus, Ohio area, and like we have those horrible winters, and it's awful to see it after. But like if someone were in his ear and I've already recommended people since then, but it's like agents should be doing that for him, and that's your point. Just constantly be in their ear, but in a meaningful way, not in
right.
it just belabors a point.
And I think that's the biggest thing with cross-selling is make it intentional, make it strategic.
Yeah.
If you get too many emails, like you're not gonna, so you have to make them impactful. And that's important, you
Yes.
know?
All right. So you've talked about it, carrier appetite, working with your carriers, partners, and I will just lead with saying we're seeing more carriers want to live in Fuse
Hmm.
because of how you're describing it and you're using it. And their point is we all have these cool portals we ask agencies to go to, but the average agency appointment's like 16, even if you really write with like the top five. But the point is,
Yeah.
everybody wants you to go to a portal, but you're living in solutions. And even if it's not AR, agencies are living in solutions where they're doing a lot of their business. And to be able to pull content specific to the appetite that matters to the carrier makes more sense in the solution that you're using, not what they want you to use. So, can you talk to us about carrier appetite? How do you get them involved in this mix?
Yeah. So a lot of times when we have conversations with the carriers, I'll say, where are you looking to grow? and and then we can target that area, right? You'll hear them, we've opened capacity here. We went from such a hard market, the market's
Yep.
softening now. We're seeing a lot of carriers open their appetite. And so you can make a strategic plan around that as well. And that not only helps your growth, but it helps you achieve like what the carriers are looking to grow too. So I think it's really important to work with your carriers, and a lot of times they'll have created content or they can give you a list too of what you have with them. Some carriers can even run analytics based on monoline business you have with them. Now you need to check it against your system because maybe it is a split policy where you have it with one carrier and you have the auto with another. Um, but they'll say based on the statistics they're looking at, they will give you advice of like what clients to also reach out to that they think is going to have a good rate of saving them money if you bundle their policies together.
Mhm.
And you can look at that now based on the carrier appetite in the market softening because maybe when you initially wrote that policy 3, 4, 5 years ago, that wasn't, you couldn't write the other line of business because they weren't open in that market. But now they are. So you can take a look at that and see what you can do to potentially bring that over.
Yeah, and the agencies all involved on this call, you know 100% the totality of your customer base and who has what policies with which carriers. Each individual carrier would love to be in that mix
Hmm.
because there's book roll opportunity. There are things that you can
Right.
do that they don't see. But by living in what you've described for us in this constant machine that's rolling and running, to be a part of that means that they get access to customers in a roundabout way that they don't even know about because
Hmm.
you might have them with one book, but they've, like you asked the quintessential question, what more do you want? Oh, didn't realize you're really good there. I have 500 customers on that, but they're over here, but what you have is better. Like,
Right.
that's where magic happens.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's to me like that's where the data is so important
Yes.
and being able to drill down and say, okay, you're looking to grow in Illinois, great. I can look at how many customers we have there. I can look at who does not have this,
That's
or
right.
just in general, like reach out and let them know that this carrier is really competitive
Yeah.
right now. And let's take a look at that. Let's have a conversation about that when your renewal does come up.
Great
Um,
examples.
mhm.
Thank you. All right. So, one, I want to say thank you, Amy. You're not off the hook yet, if that's cool. Um, I did see that we have Ian's asking for anybody if you have questions, if there are things that you want to know more from Amy, please just drop them in. While we're doing that, we're taking a poll for Agency Revolution, like we always do. If you're interested in our solutions, it's up on the screen now. We leave it up for a few moments and we can take that back and we'll make sure that you get in touch with the right people. If you're an existing customer and there are things that you're interested in learning more about, I saw someone call out the texting piece. We've got texting, social media, the do it for me to add to Fuse. Anything that you might want to add as an existing client, great. If you're curious, because we're working with people like Amy and other agencies that are on this call, and you're curious and want to learn more, we're willing to have that conversation too. And then maybe we can feature you in a fireside chat because we talk and learn from each other. So we'll leave that open for another few seconds. And I'm looking over at the chat side to see if we have any questions. Ian's been answering a lot. Did you see any, Amy, that
Yes.
struck
No,
you?
I was just gonna throw out there though, if anyone has recommendations, the more we can lean on each other, talk to each other,
Yes.
that's how some of the more, minds are better than one. So I think that's where some of my best ideas come from, is I really believe in the collaboration of a team. So if we have a challenge, I'll pose a solution, and then they come up with great ideas. And I'm like, oh, I didn't think of that. That's great. So I'd love to see if anybody has to add in the chat, maybe any other things outside of what we discussed today that would be a good cross-sell strategy.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's a good prompt. So I think I'm going to end the poll. Looks like it's slowed down. All right. I'm ending the poll. And then Ian, um, do you want to jump in here for the marketing side and then to see who can win the mug today?
Yeah, I'll be the game show host. Hey everyone, thanks for joining again. And yeah, so we're going to be sending out a recording tomorrow. And along with that, you're going to get a marketing resource, the cross-sell strategies to grow your business, some of which was taken from some of the great advice and wisdom that Amy shared with us. So just look forward to that. It's also going to come along with the webinar recording. So you'll get everything coming to you tomorrow around 11 Eastern. So just check your emails that you signed up for the webinar with. And then we're going to do a little bit of a giveaway. So three lucky winners today.
You want me to
So
tell me
Jason, if
when
you go
in
to the next
advance?
slide,
All right.
this is what you're gonna win. So I need everyone to get your webinar chat opened up. Okay? So click on the chat, get ready to type. So whenever I ask the question, the first three people to answer correctly are going to win this prize. So, Jason, without further ado,
Here we go.
all right. So, which US president made fireside chats famous? Have at it. Again, the first three that I see. Okay, no, you guys are too great. Okay.
Wow, they're
So so
they're
I
putting
feel
Tracy,
dumb.
Jason and I to shame right
I
now.
feel dumb.
We have Tracy Bailey, Danielle Marks, and Joel Chandler as the winners there. So we'll make sure we get those mugs your way. So just stay tuned. But yeah, I stumped Amy, I stumped Jason, I stumped our marketing team with this one. And if you know, this is kind of the precursor to where I came up with the name Fireside Chat when we started this series. So yeah, I was, I guess it was just me listening in history class, and Tracy and Danielle and Joel, we were
I
all
I
listening
would
in.
say it's like the majority
The
of them.
majority of people here.
And for anybody who answered incorrectly, at least you had an answer.
Right?
We were like, I don't know,
I was
Ian,
like,
you
I have
tell
no
us.
clue. Yeah. I was like, I thought this was something that you all came up with. Like that was my conversation earlier. And I was like, wow, this is going back from like back in the day. That's great.
So thanks
Uh,
for playing along. So we'll send those prizes your way. But any questions that you have for Amy or Jason, or if you have any recommendations, things that you saw working on your side, let us know.
Yeah, I would
Uh,
love if one person would answer Amy's question or point because Amy was good to be on here with all of us. So again, thank you for doing that. But her point is like she doesn't have all the answers either. So if
No.
someone's doing something that's pretty cool, interesting, and I don't care if it's with our tool, it would just be nice for the everyone to know like what is it you might be doing in your cross-sell retention strategy to be able to get more from your customers in a thoughtful, meaningful way. Like that's a really good question, Amy. So I'm driving that home. One other person wants to submit that. That would be helpful for us. And until maybe you do, we'll just throw up here that we've got a QR code you can scan with your phone. if you like to do that type of thing. If you don't, we also put the phone number up there, our email, as well as if you're an existing customer, our team at Agency Revolution to help you on whatever we might be working on together or something that sparked your interest that you want to learn more about. But this is just really for you if you have specific questions or want to discuss with us. And then you just dropped in a link there, Ian. What's that link?
This goes to the same place with the QR code.
Oh,
If you're like
okay.
me and you're not a scanner person. We had a question earlier, which I did answer, but I'd like to see what your guys' opinions are. Brandy did ask, how often should we be posting on social media? My take was that, the main approach is to, you're creating that calendar and you have to think about being consistent with it so you can actually keep up with it. So, like, what is your capacity as an agency? What can you actually keep up with? And do a mixture of like personal posts like, oh, the events you're sponsoring and also like educational pieces. But like, what would you guys recommend to Brandy with that question? If you have any thoughts. I know it's a little bit out there from the topic, but I know it can relate
No,
to like
I
the
think that's a
education and
great
nurturing piece.
question. Yeah, that's a great question, Brandy, because that's one that I think that we've seen an evolution of a change. When LinkedIn and some of the social media first came out, it was all about, at least like with LinkedIn, right? It's a business like platform. It was always about I'm at this event or I'm doing this or this. And now we've seen a little bit of more of a personal touch to
True.
LinkedIn, which I think is like nice because it humanizes you, right? Um, I think that's really based on your like how you feel, but I think if you could do a couple touch points like a week, but again, just make sure it's something impactful. There's people I see that are constantly on LinkedIn and I actually enjoy following them and watching that. And then there's others that they only post now and then. And to me, that's impactful too. So I don't know if I actually have a good answer for that, but I think that just personalizing it for even if you're at an event, and letting them know, like if you're out there doing something with the community, it's good to let people know what you're doing.
Yeah, and to build on that, maybe to start like 2 to 3 times a week and spread yourself across. On our side, we do for our agencies Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and it's a message that can be compartmentalized for any one of those particular platforms. You don't have to be on all of them, but just like dipping your toe in. Maybe when you get comfortable, maybe you change that range from 2 to 3 to 3 to 5, but it has to be something meaningful. I will tell you that I used to be, Amy, a little bit more of that here I am again and here I am on the road and here's a picture of a steak and like on LinkedIn and then I started to slow that down and then
Hmm.
I'll just say something because it actually feels right to say in the industry at the time and that's where more engagement comes from.
Yeah.
So I think you'll figure out like you were pointing out like just your comfort level of where you stand, but if you want a rule of thumb, maybe 2 to 3 times to start, but you can do that, and by developing a calendar, automating it, you can use partners like us or others. But to have a voice out there just helps to build your credibility, helps you to be found, SEO, AEO now, where AI searches are taking more of our capacity, but bringing them back into the things that you've built, like your website, your social profiles, etc.
You can also look at like what your most liked like posts are also, and then
Yes.
kind of build content moving forward on that. So I had posted a bunch of stuff at one point, and then I actually posted a picture of I brought my daughter to work during, one of the work when you can bring your kids to work days. And I posted a picture of her and I just sitting in a chair, and she had her little business suit on. That got more likes than any of the events that I had ever been at. And it took a minute for me to see if I was going to be comfortable putting that out there, but I wanted to know like I'm building like we're big on culture, and your family is part of that. And I wanted her to see where I work, what I do. And so that's where I just think, like we've been saying, just be impactful about it.
Good point, Josh. Not only posting material yourself, but contributing to others' posts in the industry gets you engagement presence. I will firsthand say that that is absolutely, I am seeing that. I help contribute as a writer to some carriers. And instead of me jumping out and saying, look what I might have been involved with, I'm just going in and commenting, talking about how it was a privilege, one, but two, adding a little bit more to what that might be, but in their post Or
Mhm.
if I share it, I'm saying something that just relates back to them, not trying to steal all and gain all of the credibility myself. And I watch that gets more because you get that report that says you've shown this many times this week for your impressions. So totally agree with that, Josh, and a really good
Yeah,
point.
that's a great call out there.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Jorge, for the Your Forge product is awesome. Great service as well. Appreciate you so much. Um, just scrolling through to make sure, but I think you answered most of it, Ian, throughout. So thanks for doing that. And we might be able to call it right at the top of the hour. We did the 60-minute thing. We still have 72 people on. We don't have any more mugs to give away in this fireside chat, but I think we will for our next one. And then I also wanted to just say one other thing, Amy, back to what you were saying about social posts and how people interact. It was interesting when you mentioned that you lived in Maine. And as
Hmm.
we're talking, someone called out like, "Yay, Maine!" Like
Yeah,
it's the stuff that sparks because we're all so tired of talking about our jobs sometimes. So it's more so just like bringing in that flavor of authenticity. And I thought that was a good call out.
I think that's important.
And
Thank
we
you,
do
man.
have a question from Heather. Hey, you were asking for him. So Heather's asking how many pre-campaigns of renewal reminders should we send out? One, two, three. What is too much?
That's a good question. So I usually like to say, you want to start, and it depends on what it is, but like we'll look at like 90 days out, right? Just maybe look at what's coming up, but then we'll send something like 60 days out. And then usually 45, and then some offices like to do 30. It just depends. Everybody's a little different. So I would usually about three is what I would say. Because you just want to, it's coming, look out for it, especially if it's a direct bill carrier. Sometimes they'll get it the same day we get it. So just letting them know you are aware it's coming up, you know. And then usually around the time, and again, it depends on the carrier. Usually it's about 30 days is when you'll start seeing that they're getting their renewals. So touch point then, and then about 15 days prior if they haven't already taken care of it. So anywhere from 2 to 3 is what I would recommend.
That's great. Yeah, and I've seen agencies will actually kind of do differences between personal lines clients. They'll send it a little bit sooner to the renewal, and for like
Hmm.
commercial lines, they'll send it a bit further ahead of their renewal dates coming ahead. Just mostly probably because in your personal life, you're probably just kind of waiting until the last minute, right? But for a business,
Yeah,
you
or if
you
it's
got to be on
agency
top of
bill,
that.
we don't get it to like right on that 30 day. So, it's just we know it's coming up, but we don't have it yet to have a conversation. So,
Cool. Any
Awesome.
other questions?
great
No,
question.
Meg says great job to you both.
Thank you.
The time,
Thank
information,
you.
inspiration. So you guys did great.
I'm glad everybody's staying on today. This is great. I'm not gonna lie, I was nervous about this, but it was actually the fact that it's very conversational. This is great. So I love the fireside chat. I think it's a great
Thank
shout out and a
you,
great
Yeah, everyone
opportunity
give a round
to
of
learn.
applause to Amy for her first
That's
fireside chat and first
I
webinar
know.
appearance.
I definitely would
it
have
is.
lost in the trivia. That's for sure.
It's all right. You were so laser focused on this topic that you didn't have time.
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
All right. I think then we can end it for today. But Ian, is that cool? Can I shut her down?
All good.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you. And look out for emails on upcoming fireside chats. Amy, again, thank you. Very much appreciate you. And it's great to work with you.
Yeah, you as well. Thanks for the opportunity.
All right.
Have a great day, everybody.